This is the Himiway Zebra. It's an e-bike that claims to go 25 miles an hour and up to 80 miles on a single charge. We brought it into the tool labs where we're going to carefully measure its speed, acceleration, braking, range, height, and more. Then we'll put the results into our score sheet, calculate the values, and find out where it lands on our tool list. Let's go. Hey guys, I'm Rob, and this is the Tool List, where we test tools without the biased intervention of humans and score them using a custom algorithm that our own community of tool fans built themselves. But before we launch into drills, impacts, and saws, we thought that we would test our system on a few e-bikes first. Why? Well, because after we posted this video a few months ago where we converted this very bike into a work truck, you all made it super clear to us that fans of tech and power tools also tend to like tech found in e-bikes. Plus, a whole bunch of companies called us and wanted us to test these 6 e-bikes. So it's kind of a win. Let's get to the testing. This is the Himiway Zebra. It's a front suspension fat tire bike with a 750 watt rear hub motor, a 48 volt 20 amp hour battery, a claimed top speed of 25 miles per hour, and a range of up to 80, presumably with a lot of pedaling. It's available in both a step through and step over model like the one we have here, each available in a wide range of colors. And this beauty can be yours today for around $1,700, but always check their website first for the latest prices. Now, before we get into our performance testing, we're going to highlight all of its features, all of which are calculated into the final score, starting with brakes. The Zebra has hydraulic disc brakes. Now, sometimes we find mechanical, which literally pulls a cable to close the caliper, but hydraulic uses fluids that transfer the force from the brake lever to the caliper immediately. This is most often more powerful, longer lasting, and requires less maintenance. More points for the Zebra. Next, we look at the size of the brake discs. Now, on a heavy e-bike like this, we want to see at least 180 millimeters, which is exactly what we found on the Zebra. Moving on to safety and starting with the headlight. Now, we offer points for including a headlight, which we think is incredibly important on an e-bike that you might plan on using to drive around in traffic. Now, there are extra points if the light is actually bright enough for us to ride at 20 miles per hour in the dark. The Zebra's light will definitely help you be seen, but it doesn't light up the road enough to ride at night. The tail light is important too. It's pretty normal to find a light on the back of all these bikes, but there are bonus points to be had if it also acts as a brake light. The Zebra's tail light is indeed a brake light as well. Next up is suspension. You're likely going to find a set of suspension forks on the front of each bike. This will smooth out bumps and just make your ride more comfortable. Some bikes will have additional suspension in the rear, but the Zebra does not. Some have adjustable suspensions for different size riders, which the Zebra thankfully does. All right, now e-bikes can be powered a few different ways. Primarily, you're either going to have a throttle in the form of a twist handle like those you find on motorcycles, or even a thumb throttle, which you operate, you guessed it, with your thumb. After using both of those, by the way, we're not actually convinced that one's better than the other. But the other way to help you get to your destination is through pedal assist. Now, there are 2 ways that these bikes can help you pedal, utilizing either a cadence or torque sensor. Now, a cadence sensor will watch to see if you're pedaling, and if you are at any given moment, after a short delay, it will start running its motor up to a predetermined speed based on the level that you set it to. Now, if that sounds kind of cumbersome, it's because it is. If you're pedaling at a speed of, say, 5 miles per hour, but your assist is set at higher speed, like 8, your cadence sensor will suddenly outperform your own pedaling and then stop at 8 miles per hour. Now, if you try to pedal faster than 8 miles per hour, then it stops helping you and suddenly it gets really hard to pedal. I'm just not a huge fan of cadence sensors. The only real benefit is the cost. The other option is a torque sensor. Now, those sense how much torque you're applying to the pedals and adjust its motor to give you a little push, making pedaling feel natural but incredibly easy. Hills literally disappear below you and you quickly wonder where the torque sensor's been all your life. But the Zebra here has a cadence sensor. If you're planning to just use your throttle around town, that's perfectly fine. But if you want to do some pedaling, maybe get some exercise in, you're better off looking for a bike with a torque sensor. All right, let's talk about the battery. Specifically, the battery size. This battery comes with a 960 watt-hour lithium-ion battery. That puts it in the bottom 3 of our tested bikes. Whether that's a problem for you will all depend on how far you want to go. We'll be covering the range test in just a minute. Of course, the size of your battery doesn't matter if it's empty, right? Each bike comes with a charger rated by how many amps it outputs. The more the amps, the quicker you're back on the road. Now, the Himiway Zebra comes with a 2.8 amp charger, which was second to last amongst the bikes that we tested so far. Now, based on its battery size, you're looking at about a 7.5 hour charge time from 0 to 100. These e-bikes are heavy, not just because of the batteries, motor, and electronics, but because the frame has to be strong enough to support all of that as well, which means the frame's heavier too. We weighed all the bikes ourselves, and the Himiway Zebra clocked in at 88.6 pounds, landing it in 4th place. That's a lot of weight for sure, but thankfully all these bikes offer a walk mode that will power the bike slowly up a hill while you walk next to it. Now, for our audience specifically, we know storage is very important. If you're going to use one of these bikes to replace your car or truck on a nice day, you'll need places to safely store your stuff. The Zebra does have a front rack available, but it's an $89 accessory. As for the rear rack, currently this beauty comes with the bike, giving it a few more points. We were able to strap around 150 pounds of gear to this rack without an issue. Although, if you watch the video, you'll already know that we recommend getting a trailer if you're going to be moving that much gear. All right, next up is gears. The Zebra has a 7-speed Shimano gear shifter and derailleur. As it turns out, all 6 of the bikes that we have tested so far have the same number of speeds, which, to be frank, left us a little bit disappointed. So when you're really pushing these guys at speeds over 20 miles an hour, even 7th speed will leave you pedaling like a toddler on their first trike. On some of these, I couldn't keep up with the top speed for more than a few minutes before I needed to brake. The higher gear would go a long way. Not really sure why they don't include them, to be honest. When we're done testing these, I actually have plans of putting a 52-tooth chainring on the front to see if it helps. Next, we have height range. Now, to test this, we bottom out and then extend the seat to the maximum recommended height and measure the difference. The Zebra can be adjusted from 33 to 42.5 inches, a range of 9.5 inches in total, which was the best of the entire group. Nice. As for cargo capacity, we don't have a good way to test this without purposefully destroying the bikes. During our endurance and acceleration testing, we put around 480 pounds of weight across the bike and our test trailer, and all 6 bikes managed that just fine. So we're going to trust the manufacturer's number on this one. The cargo capacity of the Zebra is rated at 400 pounds, leaving it tied for 3rd in our charts. And finally, let's quickly talk about classes. Now, here in the States, we have 3 legal e-bike classes. Class 1 means it has pedal assist up to 20 miles an hour. A Class 2 are also limited by 20 miles an hour, but include a throttle, which means you don't have to pedal at all. And finally, Class 3, which has a top speed of 28 miles an hour, but it may or may not have a throttle. It's actually different from state to state. California, for example, doesn't allow Class 3 e-bikes to have throttles at all. In other states, a Class 3 can have a throttle, but it can't exceed 20 miles an hour when you're using it. You'll have to pedal to get all 28 miles an hour out of it. And finally, there are unrestricted bikes that will allow you to throttle well past 20 miles per hour, but you might get in trouble using them on public lands and trails. Now, the Himiway Zebra is technically a Class 3 with a throttle, but as you'll see in our performance testing, we couldn't get it up to 28, but it does top out at 25 miles per hour while you're pedaling. All right, on to the performance testing. First up, let's talk about acceleration. For this test, we wanted to use the throttle only to get from 0 to 15 miles per hour as fast as we could. But we also know that people of all weights and sizes would use this bike, so to better test it, we aimed for the extreme of both ends. Now, I would run each test with a large trailer loaded with weight. Altogether, we weighed in at 480 pounds. Then for the other end, we've got her. Some say she was born in a garage and that her blood is 30% chain grease. All we know is she's called the Twig. And at only 120 pounds, she's likely going to get moving faster and go farther on a charge. We learned early on that you can rarely trust the computers on these bikes. So instead, we're using GPS GNSS performance analyzers to get hyper-accurate speed and time. With the Zebra loaded to full weight, it took 13.79 seconds to get to 15 miles per hour. Placing it in 2nd in our testing. Next, the Twig took a turn and things improved dramatically. She was able to hit 15 miles an hour in only 4.99 seconds. Unfortunately, that left it in last place in our lightweight run, but only by less than a second. Moving on to top speed. To get this number, we turned them all on to their highest assist, and I pedaled as hard as I could on a very flat road. The Zebra had to be unlocked with a special code in order to enable it to go over the standard 22 miles an hour. After doing that, I was able to get it to 25 miles an hour, and the display screen on the bike was accurate. That meant it tied for third in our testing. Not bad at all. But of course, once you're going that fast, you're gonna wanna stop fast too. I sped each one of the bikes up to 15 miles an hour and then pulled both brakes as hard as I could. I tried to do this with the trailer at first, but that turned out to be really dangerous. So with just me on the bike, I was able to come to a stop at 13.5 feet, ranking 5th in our testing. And finally, let's talk about range. You have no idea how hard this is to test. Himiway says you should be able to get around 80 miles on pedal assist mode and 60 on electric alone. To test this, we used our 3-mile test circuit. It's primarily flat with 2 notable hills that are a few hundred feet long and rise about 10 to 12 feet. It includes 6 intersections which require us to slow and 5 turnarounds that require us to slow significantly. We felt this would give us a good mix representative of average city driving. We also set each bike to run at 20 miles per hour on throttle alone. I would ride it first with my 480-pound setup, then run the battery down until the bike quit. It takes forever. Then we would completely recharge and have the Twig do the same. With a full battery and a heavy load, I was able to get 18.47 miles, which gave it 4th place, while the Twig was able to get 34.49 miles, giving it a 5th place ranking. To determine efficiency, we took the Twig's range numbers and calculated how many watt hours it was burning through per mile, and it came out to 27.83 watts, putting it in 5th place. And finally, let's talk value. To assign a value score, we took the current price of each bike, then we tallied up all of the bike's other points, and then divided those earned points by the dollar amount. Now, while our resulting number is going to be completely arbitrary to you, it allows us to generate a rank you can understand. In this case, the Himiway Zebra earned a value score of 5.61, which put it in 4th place in our rankings for value. So now we're done examining the features, testing, and performance, and even measuring the value. When we add up all those scores, we get a final score that ranges between 1 and 10. But the scores are all dependent on the best value earned by any tested bike. That means that since the Gemini X earned a highest top speed of 29 miles per hour in our testing, you'll see that in a later video, 29 represents a perfect top speed. The rest of the bikes will be adjusted when compared to the best. That also means that if we test a new bike that can beat that top speed, not only will that bike get the best top speed score, but the scores of all the other bikes will go down to make room. So, as e-bike technology grows and bikes get better, the scoring system will systematically move the older, underperforming bikes down the chart and make room for the newer improvements at the top. Now, we do this because a perfect 10 score on a bike today and a perfect 10 score on a bike 5 years from now would not be equal bikes, would they? By using our adaptive scoring system, whenever you go to purchase an e-bike, you just have to check our latest tool list to see where things rank. And this is the same system we've built for power tools as well. So if you find this useful and like the way that we test, I promise you won't regret subscribing to us. Okay, so back to the Himiway Zebra. With everything calculated, the Zebra gets a 7.6, which earns it a 5th place spot on our group of 6 e-bikes. All right, in the coming days, we'll be publishing a video for each of these other 5 e-bikes right here on the tool list. And shortly after that, we'll launch our first class of power tool testing, drill drivers. You won't want to miss it. Oh, and one last thing. Our goal here is to eliminate human bias in our testing. That's why we tested the bikes with their throttles instead of pedaling. We also know an adaptive scoring system is something fairly new to this space. But it's the kind of testing results that Sarah and I wanted to see for ourselves, so we decided to do it ourselves. But we want this to be valuable for all of you. So if you have any ideas, critiques, or just questions about our testing process, please leave them in the comments. I'll do my best to answer them and to consider each new idea. Now, if you'd like to learn more about the Himiway Zebra, you can watch our previous video, which I'll link at the end, and we will link to the Himiway website in the description. See you next time.